Come on.
Raindrops, we are back for part two of the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago in regards to what it's like to be black and gay and dating. What came out of that conversation was so many different layers, as we also touched on the relationship between black trans women, in addition to black women, and what that sort of relationship looks like. How can we improve upon it? So I got Quentin back, Dustin Ross, Blue Toulousema, and we have a very special guest. She is a personal friend of mine. She also is the director of the Sundance Award winning Emmy nominated documentary that my production company produced along with her, in addition to Matt Wolf and Zachary Drucker. Kristen is a black trans woman, and not only did she direct this powerful film, she is an activist, and she is somebody that I wanted to bring on as we sort of continue the conversation that we left off a few weeks ago in terms of what Blue was talking about as it relates to black women, black trans women. So I would like to start there. But before we do, Kristen, you gotta let the raindrops know, baby, exactly who you are. Run down your resume so everybody can know exactly who Kristen is all about.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kristen LaBelle. I'm one of the directors of HBO Max's The Stroll. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. Um, and right now I'm just chilling.
I know that's
Um,
right, Kristen. I know that's
That's
right.
the ultimate goal.
Okay.
Wow. Talk about it.
I know that's right. So listen, I wanted to pick up where things left off. Quentin asked a question that Blue answered, and it shook the table in regards to the relationship between black women, black trans women. Laverne Cox left a comment that I want to read first. And Blue, I will start with you after I read in terms of the reception you received, and then Chris and I have you talk about your thoughts on Blue's statement. But Laverne Cox commented and said, "This analysis is great." She praised Blue and everything else. She also mentioned how she felt it slightly falls into the misconception that male privilege always has to be earned and us constantly being withheld as the wrong kind of man. These systems are certainly a reality, but what does it look like for us to divest from them and our values and how we live our lives and view ourselves? So, Blue, I'll have you take it away from there.
Okay, so the first thing is because I'm an empath by trade and I do EQ work also by trade, those are two very different worlds that overlap a lot. Whenever somebody asks me a question, I don't speak based on, and I think you guys picked this up, but the audience might need some context. I speak as if I'm cosplaying as the people I'm speaking for,
Hmm.
right? And so if you watch that clip, I intentionally started talking about valid frustrations and showed how those frustrations start to bleed into casual transphobia. That was intentional. I was speaking like how the brain works when you are judging somebody based from a place of pain, right? That doesn't mean that's how I feel. It just means I can empathize with how other people get there. And I think a lot, maybe I was just a great actress. Maybe I deserve an Emmy, child. I think people didn't realize I was cosplaying and felt the need to. I was like, no, no, no. I'm telling you how they got there, not how I got there, right? So that's the first thing. There were three groups that I heard from. There were women who saw the clip, didn't know that right after the clip, I then said, that's not a good enough reason to cause harm to others, right? They
Hmm.
didn't see the rest of the show. And so they were just happy that their ugliest parts were being highlighted. There was that
Hmm.
group. Then there were the women who were like, damn, now that you're making me see what I'm thinking, I feel bad. That's actually quite fucked up. I wouldn't like it if a white woman did that to me or somebody else did that to me. Damn, I do have to sit with my own like casual transphobia. And I'm saying casual because a lot of people think if you're not hateful, you're not doing it. You can do things casually that are harmful, right? So there was that group that said, Blue, thank you. Honestly, I feel horrible now because now it makes sense and those girls don't deserve that. Then there were the folks who were actual trans women who were like, hey, I hold space with cis women and you're not off. They've confessed this to me too. So shout out to Dover Cox. Dominique Morgan hit me up and said, no, I've heard plenty of women say this to me all the time, right? And what I loved about the conversation is it was never me and the trans girls who had any issue because they could tell where my heart was from. And I want us to talk about the ugly so we can get over it. You can't get over something that you won't admit. So I'm happy the ugly went viral, but I'm hoping the healing goes viral too, maybe.
You know, there was, if I can jump in really quickly, and Kristen, I would love for you to help me out with this. I recognize on that post there were a lot of trans women that came on and were saying they took slight exception with Blue. They were saying that there was never any male privilege for them because they were either, feminine presenting boys or effeminate. And for me, I still think that there's a subsection of people out there that don't quite understand, what male privilege is, because whether you're effeminate or not, it still presents itself. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
You walking down an alley, an effeminate boy walking down an alley at night versus a woman walking down an alley at night, there are different dangers that present themselves. So, Kristen, I would like to know, as the resident trans person on the panel, do you feel that prior to transition, all trans women have male privilege, or do you agree with those that say, listen, I was an effeminate boy and I didn't get that privilege that y'all are talking about?
A little bit. I thought about it when I heard it. At first, I get when you were saying that you cosplay about, what others, because I do it too, and people look at me like I'm like crazy when I do it. But you have to take in consideration that when you are an effeminate or feminine presenting young person, right, we get masculinity or the demand to perform masculinity, right? And it's literally sometimes even beaten into us, right? So we don't have the privileges of being feminine because we're going to be chastised for it, we're going to be abused for it, and then in the same breath, where we're being demanded to perform this masculine, that's not privilege. We don't have a privilege. We don't have privileges of either or. And that was kind of my thing. And each trans person's journey is different. You mentioned that, like, oh, you were a nigga until you were 27 years old, and it's like that's not the case. Young, especially Black trans people, trans women preferably, we transition young. We don't skip a beat when it comes to our transition. And it's always been like that. We start at like 15, 16 years old. So I'm at a point now where have been a trans woman longer than I've ever presented as male. So I personally have never been allotted what is male privilege. But to each, their own. Everybody's journey is different, like I said.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of people that were determined to misunderstand what Blue so eloquently laid out. A bunch of slow motherfuckers that just wanted to argue about trans women versus cis women, and this debate that they have created and just fueled with their hatred and with their with all of the problematic things that they're doing. So I'm really happy we're having a conversation today to add a little bit more context for the slow people who didn't watch the whole video and just chose to hitch that wagon and go for it. I'm glad that we have opportunity to clear the floor today.
And also, too, can we be honest that the rainbow still discriminates?
Of course.
Yeah.
You know what I
Because
mean?
there's still a hierarchy amongst the community.
Because everybody on this panel has a headdress of some sort, and we know that even within the ranks there is still some shade, there's still some nasty things. I'm seeing what's happening with T.S. Madison, and it's somebody who is a queer person who's attacking her. And I do think that sometimes we have so much bass in our voice for straight people but don't check our own in a similar fashion. And to me, it's more dangerous when it's your own, right? Because a stranger on the outside who's hateful, to keep out. But if they're in the house with you, that's actually more dangerous. And I also want to tell anybody who calls themselves an ally, because part of being an ally is listening more than you talk. Politics is really steeped in desirability, right? Desirability politics is a politic. If you think trans girls are women until it's time for someone to want to date them, until it's time for someone to want to love them and lay with them and do life with them, you are compromised. That's where I lose a lot of advocates. Like they're advocates until it's time for their boy to date a trans girl. Now they got all the problematic things to say. You're compromised.
Can I tell you guys something? And Kristen, don't take offense to this, and I'm actually even ashamed to say this, but do you know the first time that I truly saw the humanity in a trans girl in the love space was the scene on Pose where Angel and Stan were about to make love for the first time, and Janet Jackson's "Let's Wait a While" was playing in the back. Now everybody knows I'm an R&B buff, that's here or there, but it was the first time for me that I saw her as a person and not a freak show, and I'm embarrassed to say that. I am. But it was the first time, like, Pose really did a lot for me in terms of helping me with my own internalized transphobia that I didn't even know that I had, because quite.
All right, Raindrops, if you want to watch more of that video, head to my Patreon page, okay? That is patreon.com/BCarlosKing. Once again, patreon.com/BCarlosKing.